For the thousands in attendance and the millions watching around the world, we are live and amplified. So let's get ready to podcast.
Fire it up.
Welcome, everybody, to another live and amplified livecast. I'm your host, Tom Quiet, and we are back at it again with another amazing podcast. Tonight, we have a very special guest. We have Jennifer Alvarado coming to us from North Carolina. How's it going today?
Good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. You know, it's getting to be a fun time. I'm in Waco, Texas. We've got the fair and rodeo in town, so that'll be here all the way through next weekend, and it's like cool. Now we got stuff to do, so.
Nice.
It's a exciting time of year. It's finally starting to cool off. I'm sure in North Carolina it's been pretty cool for a little bit now.
It's all over the place. Like it was. So my husband actually came home earlier, and I had on a hoodie and my toboggan because I was freezing. And he was like, "What is wrong with you?" Because it was like 80 degrees today, and I was like, "I'm cold," and he was like, "Something's wrong with you." So yeah. But anyway, but now it's about 49-50. Don't choke on me.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, it's my favorite time of year where it's not too hot, not too cold, but then you get those 80-degree days and it's like, I'm not quite sure how to feel. So where are you at in North Carolina right now?
So I'm in a town called Vail.
Okay.
Basically, we have cows and a post office. That's about it. It's about 30 minutes outside of Hickory. That would be our biggest city probably that people have heard of, or Lincolnton. And then Charlotte's about 45 minutes away. Okay. So we're right at like the foothills. So like Boone and going down the mountain and all that. And,
gotcha. So you're pretty far off the coast then? Oh,
yeah. Yeah, we're on the other side of the state.
Okay, so you didn't get affected by Ian?
We did have tropical storms. So we had like a lot of rain. Mm-hmm. We did have some wind, but I don't think it was as bad as they thought it was going to be here, at least. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Awesome. And so you're born, raised North Carolina your entire life?
Yes. So I was born and raised in Hickory, and then when we got married, when I married my husband, his family is from Vail. And so we found a house out here and we were like, oh, let's move out here. So, yeah.
Gotcha. And so how does music kind of work its way into your life? Are your parents musical, or did you kind of just find it on your own?
My grandfather was very musical, and I would say that he definitely had influence on me. He would play for... there was a local like Sunday morning radio station that he would play for. So he would play for that. And so when I would go to his house, I would learn guitar and mandolin and all these other things. And my parents, my dad especially, was not really into music. He listened to some, but not really. And then my mom was really into music, but didn't like actually pursue it. Wasn't a singer, wasn't a musician or anything. So really it was my grandfather that was the biggest influence.
Gotcha. And so kind of where did you kind of start musically as far as playing? Were you singing, playing guitar?
So I actually started writing, like coming up with little melodies and writing and singing when I was probably about 4. And I absolutely, like I would listen to like different things on TV, like different cartoons and all that. And I would write little melodies to go with them that I felt like fit the cartoon. Yeah. And so that's really like how I started. And then I started in church choir and kind of it just kept building from there. So church involvement was huge for me. I grew up, that was really my, I guess, first place of really sharing music was at church.
Gotcha. Cool. And at that point, did you know what kind of musician, when you started playing at church and sharing your music in church, was it always, you consider yourself country, right? I
do now. So my first album that I put out was actually contemporary Christian, and that was in 2015. So, yeah, for me, country music is where my heart really is. That's what I grew up really listening to and kind of gravitating toward. I love the storytelling that comes with country music. Um, and I had other influences, pop music and classic rock and all that, but country was just, it just fit. And it was something that my grandparents and I shared. And I think because I grew up so much at their house, because they kept me a lot when I was little, that was a way of life. Like, that's what I heard. So Lori Morgan and Reba and all those, like, that's what I knew, and what I thought singing was. And so I would say that's where my heart has always gravitated toward. But I think when you grow up in the church and you become a worship leader, because I became a worship leader at 15 or 16 years old, you also you're surrounded by contemporary Christian. And so that was sort of what I thought my path was going to be, in a way, because that's what I was doing. And so then, honestly, I put the Christian album out in 2015 and didn't really push it, was just kind of still doing my worship leading stuff. I'm still a worship pastor, like, still to this day. So, and then in 2020, like, everything was kind of shut down, and it was like, okay, I think I'm going to start doing this again. Yes. And so it was almost like coming back to what I knew, in a way. So, but yeah, I don't think I ever really, when I was little, like, that's all I wanted. I wanted to be a country singer. Like, if somebody asked me what I wanted to do, I was like, I'm going to be a country singer. And I think just middle school, high school, my parents were very practical. And so even though I had, like, music scholarships and stuff like that for college, it was like, okay, but what are you going to do with this once you're done? Like, you need a career. Yeah. And so that's what I did for a while, was kind of just, music was my hobby. But then it became this thing, like, I'm not happy without it. Like, I've got to do this. I've got to at least try. Even if I fail, at least I've tried and I know. Like, so, yeah.
Those dang parents, they always try and bring in the practicality of what you want to do. And it's so funny. Like, as you were saying that, I had almost the exact same conversation with my parents as I was coming out of film school. It's like, okay, but how are you going to make this career? How are you going to, practicality. So, yes. So coming into, is it fair to say that, like, the pandemic is responsible for your, like, reemergence into the music scene?
Honestly, yeah. Okay. I think because, I think so many people had so much fear with the pandemic, and I did too. I mean, it was a lot to be fearful of. However, I really thought it was almost like I had this moment of clarity where it was like, you know what, you get one life, you get one shot at this. Like, are you going to do this, or are you going to live in fear the rest of your life? And so for me, that's really what pushed me to do it, because for the most part, I had sort of, I had put all of it on the back burner and was just sort of like, okay, this is a hobby. Like, I'm not going to do this. Like, I may sing some at church and that's it. Like, I'm done. Yeah. And, I sent my song out, my first single, country single, Break Things. I sent it to a radio station, an internet radio station. And I said, well, I'll give you the name, it was Indie Star Radio. But I sent it to them, and my whole thought was, okay, if they say they hate it, that's my sign. I'm done. Like, I'm done. I'm just going to be content with this, and that's what I'm doing. And they didn't. And, I ended up, this was early 2021. And so I ended up at the end of 2021 being their Country Artist of the Year. And it was like, oh, okay, maybe I should reevaluate this. So, yeah. So I will definitely say that the pandemic is what helped me. And I think it was because everybody was out of their comfort zone. And so for the first time in my life, it was like, the anxiety that I grew up with and all that. It was like everybody else is feeling it too. Cool. We're all alike.
Yeah.
Now's a good time to do this.
The pandemic in a lot of regards was like a great equalizer for people. Like it
was
leveled the playing ground. Like nobody had a distinct advantage over anyone because we were all stuck in the same place.
Well, I think nobody knew. And I think that that's a huge equalizer. Like we all were faced with the unknown. And so there's so much fear of the unknown. And so for once it's like, okay, it's not a sure shot. Like we can all be in this together. And so, it really was.
Yeah. Kind of taking a step back though, you kind of touched on this a little bit, but I'd be kind of curious to dive into this a little bit more. But when you released your contemporary Christian album in 2015, you kind of just let it sit. Did you just not know how to promote music at the time, or why did you just kind of let it sit there?
I think I was very naive to the process. Yes, I think I didn't know how to promote it. But for me, there was a fear too. Because a lot of those songs were very personal. And it was almost like putting yourself out there. And I don't think I was necessarily ready to put myself out there because I'm inherently, I'm a perfectionist. Like I've always been a perfectionist. And, it took me until I was in my 20s to realize that that's not like something you put on a resume to say, hey, I'm a perfectionist, hire me. Like that's not something to necessarily be proud of because there's a lot that limits you in that. And so for me, there was that perfectionism coming out of like the fear of what people may do or say. But there was also this part of me that was, because I was so involved with worship leading, and that's what I wanted to pursue at that point, or thought I did. There was a fear of, will people take me using this platform as me trying to promote myself? And I was very fearful of that for whatever reason, even though like I'm singing about Jesus and, how he changed my life. Like, there was just this fear of I didn't want to misuse the platform. Like I put a lot of pressure on myself to represent it in a good way. And I was very fearful of just people's opinions. Yeah. And
Gotcha. And was it that fear that that prevented you from coming up with a follow-up album or continuing to release music after that?
Yes and no. I was still working on stuff. But I think I needed to grow into my own sound. I think I needed to get beyond trying to be what everybody else thinks I should be. And because there was a lot with the Christian album that I wanted to make sure that melodically and sonically, like that it fit in this nice little box and didn't push any boundaries, and you know what I mean? And so I think I had to just get past that. And I think part of that is just growing as an artist and a musician to realize like your truth is your truth. So either be proud of it or keep your mouth shut. Yeah. And so I think that that's where I was coming from. And so I think I just had to work through those kinks and say, whether people like it or not, like, this is who I am, this is what I have to say. And, when you do that, when you're authentic and you're real with what you're saying, I think that speaks to people. When you're trying to just play a role and be this perfectionism or whatever, that can turn people off because people see through that. And I think I just had to really work through that and through myself and remember why I got into music and what made me want to pursue it. And that was the fact of people being real and singing songs that said something or did something within me to make me feel like I wasn't by myself. And so that's sort of why I wanted to go on and go toward the country and pop stuff too, because I think there's a lot of people out there that are lost, that are hurting, that that feel like nobody understands who they are, or nobody's gone through this, or whatever the case may be. And that's just not true.
Mm-hmm.
But we get in our bubbles of sometimes self, condemnation. And I think that that's why I'm here, honestly, is to be able to be that friend to somebody who just feels like, nobody gets them.
Yeah,
so
for sure. You kind of touched on something interesting, and correct me if I'm wrong. The way I kind of took all this was that you had to kind of let your music mature, and you mature as a musician, because there's going to be like those transformative years where even though you weren't releasing music, you mentioned that you were still like working on music, or at least writing to some capacity.
Oh yeah, I was writing some of my strongest songs. I feel like came through that period of time, and I think it was just getting past the fear of somebody seeing me for me, instead of what I felt like they wanted to see. Because I spent a lot of time when I was in worship ministry. I spent a lot of time trying to fit into this bubble or this mold of what I thought they wanted everybody to look like, everybody to see, whatever. And I think when you're in that kind of environment, you lose a little bit of yourself. And so I really had to kind of rediscover who I was, and especially who I was with the music, and say, I want to be real to who I am, whether that ticks people off or not. And yeah.
Gotcha. So kind of moving back forward towards the pandemic in 2020, was there a specific moment in time before the pandemic, during the pandemic, that you were like, okay, I think I'm ready to start recording music?
So I had recorded a little bit. I had actually started recording the Playing with Fire EP back in 2019.
Okay.
So I had gone in, and then of course, like, the pandemic hit and everything fell apart, and things took 2 years to complete, essentially. But with that album, those songs I'd had for a little bit, it was just sort of like I was working on it because I wanted to work on it for me.
Yeah.
But I think it was, so I kind of left the situation I was in back in 2018, 2019, and started really kind of going out on my own and figuring out, like, okay, this works, this doesn't work, this is what I want to do, this is what I don't want to do. And I think during that period, like, it was helpful. It was helpful to know, like, okay, I'm not crazy. Like, this was a bad situation, but, here's this over here. Like, maybe this is better, and just going through those things, because I've always tried to have this plan. Like, I've always wanted this 20-year plan. And I would say 2017, past 5 years or so, like, nothing has been what I thought it should be or what I wanted it to be. And that's a good thing, because it forces you to grow and to see more than you thought you would see. And, there was a lot of changes professionally, a lot of changes just emotionally and with me, and then a lot of changes just with people and relationships. And I think when you have that, you have to release it somehow. And for me, it was through writing. It was through just getting these songs out there and saying, like, here it is, the good, the bad, the ugly, the whatever.
But at the end of the day, it's all you. It authentically represents you, and that's the important part. And I think that's what a lot of fans really connect with,
I hope so,
as far as like listening to music and musicians, is that authenticity. So in 2021 you released the Playing with Fire. Is it an EP or an LP? Because I'm kind of on the fence. To me, it looks like it's more of an LP, but
okay. So it's 8 songs. So call it whatever you want to call it. I called it an EP, but I think you're right there on that cusp of, like, LP land. So
Well,
yeah,
because I know back in the day it was not so much the amount of songs, it was more about the
the
length as
time.
far the time.
Yeah.
And so just like looking at it, it's like, I don't know, might be, I don't, whatever. But a little side banter conversation to have right there. But after playing with Fire, you just kind of went on this roll of releasing singles, and it seemed like maybe you found your groove, or you got found confidence, or found
I would say find confidence.
yeah.
Yeah. I think my producer Ricky and I, especially with this last EP and the one we're working on now, we changed everything we were doing. I instead of going in with like these songs because okay, let me go back some. So
Okay.
2015 or 2014 even, when I was first recording that Christian album, I was so just green with just, I went in, I'd had a bad experience with past producers and just changing my sound and everything because, I got demos out there and all kinds of stuff. Anyway, but I'd had all that happen, and so I was very like scared of the whole studio process and was not thrilled with it whatsoever. And so when I first went into the studio, it was like, okay, here's my songs, and I like so wanted to be professional and be taken seriously that I was sort of like, this is how I want it to sound, this is what we're going for, blah blah blah. And there was not really any discussion as far as like just the foundations of it and just trying new things. I didn't want to go out of my box. And so with the EP, Playing with Fire, LP, whatever, Playing with Fire, I got a little bit more out of my box. And then with this last one, it was like, okay, let's turn all of it on its ear. Let's just do everything different. And so like we structurally started with different, like we started with a straight beat instead of like, I still had the lyrics, I still had the overall music, but we built it completely differently. And I started using samples and this and that and the other, and it was like, okay, let's just try this, and if it sucks, it sucks. If it, whatever, but let's not be afraid to at least try it. And I think that that's the difference. And that's honestly the difference of like a really good producer or just somebody that really connects with you with a producer, because they should be bringing that out of you. I feel like and that's what he's great at doing is giving me that confidence to just be like, let's try this, let's do this.
Yeah, so. For sure. Yeah. And then so your most recent EP, Songbird Part 1. I'm bringing this up because it kind of leads into the next part of the conversation with the new single that drops tomorrow, which is exciting, plus the upcoming EP right behind it, which is Songbird Part 2. How long was it always the intent to do like a dual EP release, or how does this project kind of come into play?
At the beginning, no. Okay. But I felt like as we started going through it and I started kind of telling the story, because really with this release, I want to tell a story from start to finish. And it's the story of like this relationship, this narcissistic relationship and toxicity that it starts great. It starts wonderful. And you're curious and you're in the, you're in the newness of everything and all of that. And then all of a sudden, like it's that spiral out of control of not being able to recognize yourself anymore. Because you've told yourself for so long that intuition inside you that just shut up, you're wrong. Like it's good. We're all good.
Yeah.
And so by the end of this EP, part 1, it's like you're left with all these questions. You're left with all this like, I don't know what the crap's going on anymore. But I also know that there's hope. And I think that that's one thing that I want to make sure of in my music. And I think that is the Christian music part of me coming back. Well, I mean, the Christian part of me, I can't get rid of it. That's who I am. Yeah. But, and I don't want to get rid of it. But that part is that hopeful part. The part that's like, okay, there's going to be there's going to be something that comes from the ashes. Like, this isn't the end of the story. And so that's really how I wanted it to move. And I realized that I sort of needed to break that down into parts, both from just from the perspective of this society's so fast paced
Mm-hmm.
that we lose focus within like 10 seconds.
Yep.
And I wanted each of these songs to have their moment. And I felt like by splitting it up, they more so could have their moments,
Mm-hmm.
and have their little, story time or whatever before we go on to the next thing.
For sure.
Because I really wanted this next part to be about realizing it's not you, realizing that not all of it was you, realizing that voice, that inner voice within you, like, it was accurate and you need to listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
But also knowing that, like, there's tomorrow and things will get better.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, you brought up kind of the fast-paced nature of today's society and people losing touch, which is kind of why you broke things up the way you did. But I really did enjoy the fact that, at least from what it looks like from my perspective, is you still did a very traditional release where it's 3 singles and then the full length project, and it still kind of pays homage to how it used to be done, but still still kind of plays to the fast-paced nature, giving each song its time in the sun. How did you kind of go through the process of choosing the three, at least for part one? We'll talk about part one specifically.
Yeah.
How did you go through the process of picking which songs you wanted to release as the standalone singles?
I felt like with Filthy Water, which I released it at the end of last year, to me, that song kind of sums up everything. And plus, it was different in its style from what I had been doing with Playing with Fire. And so I really, I just really felt like that one especially was strong and needed to be a single. And I felt like the message behind it, I wanted it to be a single. Rock This Way, well, let me go back to Curious. Curious, I wrote in December and was very quick write, like 10 minutes maybe. I mean, and then we went in the studio, like I took it to Ricky, and basically we had it all done in a day. And and then drums, I think, were added later. But yeah, like, it was a very quick process. And for me, like, I just knew that one would be good to release during like February. And plus, there's just that connection with that song. I love the flow of it. And then Rock This Way, I felt was like that perfect summer song.
Yeah.
Because it's fun and it's,
I always enjoy the summer anthems, like, especially just being in a place where, like, when it's summertime, it's actually summertime, and you can roll the windows down and just enjoy the day and turn that song on, and it hits different. Like, that's a very cliche thing to say, but it's very true in this situation. So
yeah, and I mean, that's what I wanted. I wanted that fun song just to be a little different than everything else. To be the shiny spot in the big old pot of doom. No, I'm kidding.
I feel that. So part one's been out since it would drop in June, July?
It actually dropped on my birthday, July 24th. Yep.
Awesome. And so following that up, you've got part two coming out here real soon. But leading that off, you have a new single, Catfish, which I don't know if it's actually about catfish or if it's a metaphor, but
it's kind of both.
Okay.
So I grew up fishing. Well, I like to go fishing, and I've always heard about catfish and how they make their weird little noises, and you think it's something else. And so, but then the show Catfish that came out. So it's kind of got that double meaning of, like, yes, I'm talking about fishing, but really I'm talking about this jerk of a person that isn't who they say they are. And so it's got that double meaning.
Yeah, gotcha. I just had catfish for the first time over the summer, and it changed my life. I will say that.
Oh,
It
okay.
was good. I don't know.
Huh.
Just throwing it out there. Like I was in Memphis and they were like, "Oh, hey, there's this like platter dinner. You should try it." And I was like, "I've never had catfish." And they're like, "Well, try it." And yeah,
Well,
because I don't know. I felt like I was
does
pertinent to
it
the.
taste like does it taste like chicken? Like everything else tastes like
Nope,
chicken, or is
nope, nope. It. I don't know. It's just good. I was.
okay.
It, yeah, it was. But so what kind of following up off the last couple of
Mhm.
questions? Why'd you choose catfish as the first part for part two?
Um, I like the sassiness of it. And I like just that it's fun. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, I think right now, um, the focus I want to have with music is just to be kind of lighthearted with it and
Mm-hmm.
still have fun. Because some of the other songs on the album are very raw and very personal, and so I sort of wanted to start there and then delve into it. But yeah, yeah, I just
Awesome.
I like it.
Nice, awesome. And so we're less than 3 hours, almost 2.5 hours, less than 2.5 hours away from its release,
I
right?
know.
Well,
Yeah,
actually, for you, it's probably like in 90 minutes.
it
Like
is. It's 90 minutes for me.
I don't like. I've never actually like paid close enough attention to see if Spotify, like, I know they do it like internationally, like the UK, it won't release
You can
at.
set it. So you can
Okay.
either your distributor, you can actually set it. So you can do it to do 12 like 12 a.m. across the board,
Hmm.
like in each place, or you can do it 12 a.m. for this, like for Eastern.
Hmm.
And so it's the same time everywhere. But
Gotcha.
yeah, I think I did across the board just 12 a.m.
Gotcha.
So,
Cool. So 90 minutes for you. I've still got 2.5 hours, but you know, what's kind of going through your mind right now as the song's getting ready to drop?
I mean, I hope people like it, of course. I hope people listen to it and stream it and all, and buy it, all those kind of things. It's one of those songs that honestly, I started playing it in shows first before I even recorded it. And it was one of those things that it just felt right. It was a fun song. And it seemed to, people seemed to like it. And so I think that was a bigger reason too for going with it, was it seemed to really go over well. Um, so yeah, of course you always want it to do well, and you want it to, um, be fun and
Mm.
people to like it and all of that. I will say I don't. I try not to focus too much on it now. Like,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, yeah. I try to just go with it and we see what
Yeah.
happens. And
Because right now it's kind of at that point where anything you do at this point isn't going to make that much of a difference. So it's just kind of
exactly,
like the seeds have been laid already. So it's just kind of like wait to see what happens. So.
exactly. Well, and I think too, like there is that part of me always, like the day before a song comes out,
Hmm.
I'm always like, oh, should I have released that? Should I have done that? Like, and and I think with this one, it's like, no, I don't have I have not actually thought about it, and I don't know if I'm just so busy I haven't thought about it, or I'm sure of it. I don't know
Yeah.
which one at this point, but
Yeah.
right now I'm good. Like it's like yes, 90 minutes, we're good.
Yeah. Or like, I mean, just like not second guessing yourself is something that just kind of takes time, especially, and like repetition almost. Like as you release more music, you just kind of learn like ain't nothing I can do about it now. I'm not gonna like take it
Right,
down 90 minutes out, you know.
right.
It's so um so with this release, you've got part two coming up. Are you
Mhm.
hoping to get that out this year, or where's the
I think we're probably going to wait until January
okay.
on it. Only because I actually went in to do some holiday music.
Oh, okay.
And then there was a lot of sickness that happened with my producer, with me, everybody, and so everything kind of got off track. I do have a holiday song,
Hmm.
one coming out.
Nice.
It was going to be like a little EP, but
Yeah.
now it's like my one song, and then we'll finish the rest of the
Yeah.
album next year. Um, so yeah, probably January is what I'm thinking now, just because
Nice.
everything time wise,
Yeah.
and because here's the thing, I want it to be good versus
Mhm.
out.
Yeah.
Like, so I want to make sure that I'm proud of what I'm putting out, and it's a good representation
Yeah.
versus just let's get it out the door.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. You brought up the Christmas music, and I've seen so many ads for Christmas songs already, like just from independent artists saying, "Hey,
Yes.
I've got a song dropping like November 1st or whatever it is."
Yep.
And it's got me thinking, like last year for Christmas, I or like for the entire month of December, I just took the month off. I didn't do podcasts, I didn't do nothing. I just kind of enjoyed the
Yeah.
season. But I feel like I missed out on a lot of good conversations about Christmas music.
Yeah.
And so it's like this year I was really looking forward to taking that month off. And but now it's just kind of like
You
maybe I
think
need
you
to
need
like double down or something and just do one every day, do like a 25 days of Christmas and just all Christmas music, you know?
that? Yeah.
But, you know, that's just kind of where my head's been falling at lately. It's just like I feel like I'm making half of this stuff up as I go. So,
Oh, I totally feel you on that. Yeah. Every day I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. People ask me how things are going. I'm like, I don't know. People
it's
still
like
call and I'm still here, so I guess we're good. Like,
yeah, it's one of those things where it's like I had I had a friend of mine ask me how I was doing the other day, and I was like, I don't know. I had like 7 people ask me on the podcast, so I think that's good, right? I don't know. It's like, and then I'll go like 7 days, and nobody will like reach out, like nobody will ask, and it's like, okay, it's kind of a wash then. So here we sit. Um, no, that's awesome. So you got a lot of releases coming up. What are you where are you kind of sitting show wise? Are you actively playing out? Are
oh
you
yeah.
okay?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so I don't like to sit still. Um, so like I've actually already started planning for 2023, like all of it.
Mhm.
Um, and so I try to have at least one or two every week where
Mhm.
I'm playing out. Sometimes it's more like four or five. That's fine with me. I don't care. I actually have two on Saturday this week. So yeah, so I'm just trying to play out because I feel like for so long I just succumbed to the fear of
Yeah.
whatever that I feel like I have a lot of time to make up for or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's my overdoing personality, but whatever. So yeah, I'm playing out a lot. The funny thing is, you were talking about taking off December. That was
Mm.
my goal. Like I was going
Yeah.
to take off December. I was like, I think I'm just going to take it off, all of it. My
Yeah.
husband and I were both like, yes, that's what you need to do. And I think I have one weekend free. Like other than, well, I don't even have it free because I have
Yeah.
a Christmas Eve service and Christmas Day
Yeah.
service, but I don't have a show. So
Yeah. I mean, are you singing during the service? Because technically, then that
yeah.
constitutes the show. At least in my book.
No,
I don't.
I don't feel like it is. Like worship wise, like just like Fridays, I have a
Yeah.
worship service every
Yeah.
Friday. And I just don't consider that. I consider that worship and therefore it doesn't count. And it doesn't
Right. Fair enough.
I
Fair
don't
enough.
know.
Fair enough. Fair enough. No, you were talking about planning ahead for 2023, and I think a lot of musicians are going through that because they had essentially a year and a half just like take it away, and now it's like,
Yeah.
no, now we need to just like
Yeah.
get out there. And I found myself last weekend planning a 2 week road trip that I
Oh,
don't even know if I could financially afford, but it's like, nope, I've got, because the job I have, they're very generous with the paid time off that they give us. And
right.
because I've been there so long, it's like, cool, I'm using it.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm like, I could take just a random 2 week vacation. They're not going to say anything. It's not illegal, I don't think. Uh, and so it's just like I found myself planning out like 2 road trips. It's like, okay, do I go up the East Coast or do I go out west and just do like a West Coast swing? Except they all kind of cover. One goes a little bit further up into like New York, and
Okay.
then the other one goes up to like Seattle. But it's pretty much the same trip, other than
Yeah.
Like it'll go to Florida, then like I think I hit like North Carolina, and then I go up to Chicago, and then out west. So I don't know. It's kind of random, but
When are you taking these? I think that would be the decision.
July. It'll be July. 100% July.
It's going to be hot either way, so.
I live in Texas.
Yeah, true.
I live in Texas. We
It'll
went.
be like Antarctica for you.
Yeah, we went. 100. What did we do? 110 days with no rain, or 110 days in triple digits, or something. I don't know. It was some crazy record we came close to breaking. So,
Yeah.
very hot, but it's all good. So just kind of outside of music to
Yeah.
get to know you a little bit more
Yeah.
outside being a musician. What are some of your hobbies? What do you do when you need to kind of escape and just be Jennifer Alvarado?
Um, so I love animals. We don't have kids, but we have two fur babies is what I call them. So I love animals. I love spending time with them. So I actually help with a couple different recovery ministries,
Hmm.
and so I really love that. I love helping out with that and just trying to be there for people and be encouraging to people through that. And this is probably a little twisted, but we just finished the whole Dahmer show
Nice.
tonight, and so we like my husband. My husband's a counselor,
Hmm.
and so I think he finds it fascinating, and I do too. Just the whole serial killer thing.
Yeah.
So we watch a lot of Dateline and stuff like that.
Nice. What did I just watch? Who was the clown murderer guy?
Is that Gacy? No.
Yeah, Gacy, John
It
Wayne
is
Gacy.
Gacy?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Gacy.
Yeah.
He had his series up on Peacock where they like interviewed him, and then they like through his interview told the story of his entire situation. That was really interesting. Just like outside of it being like a crime documentary, just like
Yeah.
a look into his psyche and the way he thinks about things.
Yeah.
It's like
Definitely.
that's very interesting to me. So,
Yeah.
other than that, have you seen what are some other shows that you've watched? Is it pretty much all true crime?
No,
No.
I'm trying to think. Let's see, we watched The Righteous Gemstones when it was out. Which anyway, I'm trying to think what else we watch. I mean, How I Met Your Mother, we still watch reruns of that. We still watch uh Young Sheldon's one that we watch. I mean, there's a few different shows that we watch. We used to have like Bachelor Mondays. My husband and I used to have those where we would watch either The Bachelor or The Bachelorette, but we kind of got out of that, honestly. I think our schedules changed, and then we just kind of, I don't know, our mood changed on it. But yeah, we like watching. We call some of it just trash TV. We like, I think because like you go so much during
Yeah.
the day and during the week, and it's kind of like, let's just watch something mindless for
Yeah.
a little. So
Something that you don't have to have your full attention to, that if you just kind of
yeah,
doze off, it's
yes,
not a huge loss and you can instantly snap back in and be like, okay, I kind of get the premise still. So
yep, exactly,
you don't have to worry about too many key details getting lost. I do the same
exactly,
thing all the time.
yeah.
So one of the things that we do on the podcast
Okay,
is we have a fun game that we play called Rapid Fire Randomness.
okay,
I have a random question generator sitting right in front of me, and I'm going
okay,
to fire off about 10 random questions at you, and we just kind of answer them. Don't think too much into it, just kind of
okay,
answer them as quickly as you can.
okay.
So if you're ready,
Yep.
we have rapid fire randomness.
Okay.
Would you rather meet the person you could have been or the person your partner could have been?
The person I could have been.
Okay. What's the most expensive, unnecessary thing that you've ever purchased?
There's a dress in my closet from Juicy Couture that I got on Rodeo Drive that was like almost $400. That, yes, my husband was like, "What are you doing?" Like, we were dating at that point, and I was like, "But it's Juicy Couture."
What technological advancement would you like to see in your lifetime?
Technological?
Yes.
I mean, I would say something to where, like, either with those that maybe have hearing loss or blindness or anything, that it wouldn't be as expensive, that it could just be a simple, like, so that more people can afford that, especially like those with eye problems, that they can afford to get help, because I think everybody deserves that.
If aliens take over the US and Godzilla is running Asia, why are the gremlins supreme leaders of the world?
Because when they're little, they're cute. Before they get wet, like, they're super cute.
Fair. Okay. That was the most random question, but that's why I like this thing.
I was gonna say, I hate aliens. Like, I can't. Like, I'm terrified of them. Like, that is my.
If you were given the opportunity to take over any company in the world, what company would you take over?
Oh, goodness. I would say some pharmaceutical company, because I think that there's drugs and stuff like that that could be so much cheaper for the people that need them. Yeah.
Perfect. What is the title of your unwritten autobiography?
Ooh. What she didn't say.
What is your favorite memory of your partner?
Probably that when we were, well, okay, our first date, he actually wrecked. So, like, we were leaving the restaurant, and he ran out, like, his car lunged forward as a car went by, and it hit another car. And I remember thinking, as I'm going down the road, because I was in front of him, do I turn around and go check on him, or do I just let it be and never talk to him again? And I turned around, because I was like, if it were me, I would hope somebody would check on me. So, like, that's what I think of, just the fact that there was that instantaneous, like, care for him.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Would you rather be a bored librarian or a busy barista?
A bored librarian, because I like books. I've always loved books. And I'm an introvert. I don't want to have to talk to people.
Fair. Who or what is the worst habit that you possess?
I could go so many different directions. I feel like I'm selfish. Like, I feel like I have a lot of selfishness still in me that I wish I didn't have.
Fair. And then what is your lucky number?
12.
Sweet. I dig it. That was rapid fire randomness.
Wasn't bad.
I was kind of waiting for a good one to end it on. I was like, oh, this isn't really an ender one. And then the lucky number one came up, and I'm like, yeah, that'll work. Let's go. Let's do it. But I really appreciate you being on here. I don't want to keep you too much longer, since it's I for some reason I thought you were in Nashville, and I was like, okay, we got a little bit, but if anybody wants to check out your music, interact with you on social, any of that fun stuff, where's the best place to find you?
So JenniferAlvarado.com is my website, and it'll have all links to all the other socials. But definitely find me on Instagram, Jennifer Alvarado Music. Same thing for TikTok, but on Facebook too, and all those things. So.
Awesome. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for jumping on the podcast. It was kind of a last minute thing that we booked up here, but luckily I had a opening date, and it just kind of worked out. It's kind of funny how it seemed to work out, but Really appreciate you coming on. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget, November 17th, we have our pancreatic cancer fundraiser podcast. We will be live on Twitch for 24 hours straight, raising funds for pancreatic cancer research. This will be our second year doing it, so if you have any questions or want to figure any of the information, just feel free to reach out to me. All our socials and stuff, you can find our contact information, socials, all that fun stuff at liveandamplified.net. Once again, Jennifer, thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I'm your host, Tom Quiet, and we will see you all Sunday morning, bright and early. And...